Andrew Le Jeune here with your Asian Racing Review, joined as always by Michael Cox, editor of Asian Racing Report. On location this week is a big weekend in Hong Kong. Of course, it's the BMW Hong Kong Derby and the Group 1 Queen's Silver Jubilee Cup. We'll talk about that and more coming up in the next 10 or 15 minutes. Michael, the barrier draw was this morning. Who were the big winners or losers, if any, out of that?
I think we went in with a lot of pressure and great to be here back at Sha Tin. I think we went in with a lot of expectations, thinking that the barrier draw today was going to tell us something about who to lean towards out of this. What is looming as a bit of a two-horse battle between Beauty Eternal and Super Sunny Singh. And we came away with a little bit of nothing. I think it might be a case of best horse wins with the way these horses have drawn.
Beauty Eternal, then he's drawn at the barrier number 7. Super Sunny Singh's just outside of him. The inside and the outs, Tuchel draws the inside. Ryan Moore will be riding him for John Size, and Voyage Bubble, definitely a pace angle, given his win in the Classic Mile, draws barrier number 14. So there will, you imagine, some pace coming from the outside into that first turn. So in that regard, maybe it gets a little bit tight going to that first corner, because it does come up quite quick.
Well, it's always a big test here at Sha Tin, isn't it, in a 2,000-metre race of any type. But you add to it that you've got horses there that are suspect at the distance. It does Voyage Bubble get sent forward there in the sense that he's going to be suspect at this trip. They don't want to burn him out. Maybe they choose another option. But how horses fit in when they come to this first turn here at Sha Tin, a pretty short run from the 2,000-metre starting point. It's a very tricky starting point. It could decide the tempo, but what we can always there can be a tendency in a derby for the horses to go very quick to that first turn to gain a position, and then horses that are a little bit suspect at the 2,000 metres, then taking a hold down the back straight. You get some slow sectionals. And what this really becomes a test of is not so much stamina as it does racing manners, and can a horse drop the bit, relax in the middle of stages, and then sprint again quickly coming to the straight.
A couple of other important draws, maybe Galaxy Witness from 3, Sword Points drawn barrier number 6. So no, all the main chances you'd think of, they'd be reasonably happy with their draws. What about John Size? Of course, not just Beauty Eternal in the race, but that's his number 1 string. What did he have to say after the draw?
Well, I came up to John Size, and look, he's a reluctant interview at the best of times, John Size, but before he's got probably an odds-on favourite in a derby, he was looking at me with some scepticism as I came up. And what I really wanted to know from Size was, look, there are a couple of doubts here. This horse comes in as the dominant favourite, but there are a couple of doubts. He hasn't been beyond 1,600 metres. But what I wanted to ask him was, this horse hasn't been tested either. He's come in off easy wins on the bit. He's done everything within his capabilities and hasn't really been extended. And I asked him whether he would have preferred the horse had have been bottomed, or find out what he's got under his hand, rather than a horse that's been winning easily and with confidence. And his answer was, why should I tell you? I don't want you to learn anything. My competitors might learn something as well, which I thought was just absolutely made my day as a reporter. It's, they're the sort of interactions that you can have. Ask a John Size a good question and you'll get a very cutting answer. He does not want to give anything away, John Size. But look, we did talk about it beyond that very funny first interaction. And he believes that the horse is probably a miler as he gets to becoming an older horse, which is really interesting. It just puts that little bit of doubt in punter's mind. You know, this horse is going to start odds on. I'd say how far odds on, we'll see. But I did ask him then, look, well, now, given that you believe that the horse is a miler in future and a 1,600-metre horse, and he's coming to 2,000 metres for the first time, will you instruct jockey Zac Purton to ride him any differently, or do you encourage your jockeys to ride the horse as if he can get 2,000 metres? And he was firmly in that of the belief that jockeys should ride confidently, and Zac shouldn't be trying to save ground, trying to ride conservatively, and trying to sort of penalise a horse for something he hasn't shown he can't do yet. So we don't know that Beauty Eternal can run 2,000 metres, but we also don't know that he might be a brilliant 2,000-metre horse too, because we haven't seen him do it yet. So there's just a little bit of doubt though around Beauty Eternal, and maybe there's a few nerves in the camp there as well. A lot of pressure for the Kwok family, who spent a lot on horses over the years. And look, they had a horse, Beauty Generation, that was a great champion of Hong Kong, but he wasn't ready for his derby. He wasn't the horse that he was going to become on the big day. And this race isn't necessarily about who the best horse is going to be. It's about who the best horse is right now. And Beauty Eternal, look, he's still running around on raw ability. Let's see. It makes it really exciting race. So.
I think it was something like 80 or 90,000 Australian dollars this year, which is still a lot of money, but on the grander scheme of things, does come in on the cheaper side, maybe as some other purchases. But as far as the price is concerned, odds-on favourites in recent years, Collection was 1.4. He might even challenge that as being the shorter price. Rapid Dragon was odds-on, Golden 60 was on, Viva Park was odds-on as well. Could we see, looking back at Golden 60, that race, or is there a potential Playa Puente in the fields and a Blake Shin who might just fire on the turn and try and steal a few lengths and really make him work for him? I assume maybe Zac Purton's probably positioned a little bit closer to the speed, so that makes it harder tactically as well.
I see Zac riding this horse in a similar manner to that of Luger, a number of John Sizer's 3 Derby winners from the past. That Luger I actually spoke to John Size about Luger today. He said, look, not only was he his best distance a mile, he probably would have been a champion 2-year-old in any other jurisdiction. We don't have 2-year-old racing here in Hong Kong. So, look, I think from that perspective, how Zac Purton rode Luger to win his Derby was like to get him out and just put him up near the speed and stay out of trouble. Let's take luck in running out of the equation and back the fact that we're riding the best horse in the race. And that's how I expect Beauty Eternal to be ridden. And it really will matter to Zac if somebody does try and take off in front. I think that this horse will be right up near the speed, but the question is who'll be right on his hammer. And I'd say Vincent Ho and Super Sunny Singh, the second favourite, is probably going to have a pretty good vantage point.
Well, let's talk about him. Big weekend for Chris So, the ever smiling and positive Chris So as well. Super Sunny Singh, could it be the fairy tale finish for them?
Look, there's a quiet confidence in the camp, the Super Sunny Singh camp. Look, Chris knows. I spoke to him last night at Happy Valley, and Chris knows and has full respect for Beauty Eternal and a couple of the other runners as well. Like, he knows he's coming in. He also knows what he's got. Vincent Ho, we've talked about before in Asian Racing Review, around this horse from a long way back, making comparisons with Golden 60. My feeling is that what I put to Chris So was, do you see a chink in the armour of Beauty Eternal? Is there a way that you can ride your horse that could maybe bring the favourite undone? And he was more of the opinion that they would ride Super Sunny Singh to his best attributes and try to get the best out of him. And that is that, you take a sit, find a good spot, and then just trying to sprint over the top of them down the centre of the track. Look, it's a good horse, and if their sort of philosophy was if they run into one better, well, so be it. But look, he's a horse that has been taking a step forward every start that he's gone out. So there's nothing to say that he can't take another step again on Sunday.
If they're the big two, Beauty Eternal and Super Sunny Singh, other horses worth a mention?
I don't see a genuine winning chance out of these two. But what we can see in a Derby is other horses ridden conservatively to make sure they get a trip and maybe sneak into place money. We see big price horses coming second and third in this race over the years. And look, I don't know that he'll be an enormous price, but Galaxy Witness drawing Barrier 3 is one that I'd keep an eye on. Damian Lane replacing Jamie Carr, who had been booked but then suffered a fall last weekend and out with concussion. So Damian Lane comes in, and I'm pretty sure that the instructions there will be conservative, rails runs, sit back, sit sprint. I can see someone like that running into a place. Tuchel with the draw, Ryan Moore, just an absolute master. I mean, a few years ago he ran on Get Fly for Richard Gibson, just a massive odds with that type of ride. I don't think he was ever going to win the race, but sitting back and then building the revs and coming into it late while others are fading because of the distance.
All right. Okay. We'll leave the Derby there for a moment and move on to the Group 1. Actually, before we get to the Group 1, James McDonald's got a big day on Saturday in Australia and be on a plane Saturday night to come and ride in the feature races there as a result of his appeal being upheld, and he got it reduced, which allows to ride him on one of the biggest weekends of the year now, the Golden Slipper Day at Rose Hill, and then flying out for the Derby. 4.9
meetings reduced to. It's just wonderful. I mean, does he have to have a race off at the end of one of these cards for the 10th of the meeting? I mean, it was a pretty, look, I'll just comment on the reaction to the appeals board decision, because maybe we'll leave a full dissection of the Racing New South Wales stewards appeals system for another day. But look, I've never seen so many jockeys outraged on social media about an appeals board decision. It did give the sense of playing favourites, and it did give the sense that some race days are worth more than others. And look, it is a big day. We want our great star riders riding, but the perception was from a lot of people that James McDonald given a little bit of soft treatment there to be able to ride on that day.
All right. Well, it does mean, though, he can now ride Lucky Sweynesse as well for Manfred Mann as Zac Purton stays with California Spangle. And it's a great three-way clash here with Wellington, last year's winner of the Queen Silver Jubilee, lining up as well. He'll also have a new jockey, Ryan Moore, taking over from Alexei Bedell. Ryan, of course, rode him in December at the Internationals because Alexei was out injured, but flies in and takes the ride again on Sunday.
Yeah, and no disrespect to Alexei Bedell, but, I mean, Ryan Moore, just one of those jockeys when he gets on a horse, you just, the feeling is that there's half a length there, or a length. And coming off that was probably, close to a career best performance, right in his wheelhouse too. We'll see. Look, Zac's going to be in front. It's going to be an absorbing tactical battle, small field, but, three great jockeys, Purton, McDonald on Lucky Sweynesse, probably the second favourite, Purton on the favourite California Spangle, and then Ryan Moore. Where do you see him running? Like, you've watched a lot of Hong Kong racing over recent years, and Wellington. Like, well, he's obviously got the high cruising speed and sprint of a genuine 1,200 metre horse. Does he stalk them here, or does he try and use his pace and be up on their hammer?
No. I'm sure they'll sit in. I actually think, I said this last year, I'll say it again, I think he's better at 1,400 metres than he is at 12. I'd even love to see him have a crack at a mile, but we'll leave that for another time. I think Lucky Sweynesse and California Spangle go out and roll. In the small field, he's never going to be too far back, too far away from them. Ryan's going to have the last drop on them. It should be a fantastic race. I'm not saying it's going to be a massive margin, but I do think Wellington will be better this time around over this trip and can get his revenge, certainly on Lucky Sweynesse. And just looking forward to the clash. Hong Kong are very lucky at the moment in the sense they've got the top three on the Longines World Rankings. And we've got three top-class sprinters here going head-to-head as well. And I think we're in for a real threat.
Can't wait for this race. Just a three-way go, like, a sprinter on the rise, like Lucky Sweynesse. Zac forced to make the tough decision to stick with California Spangle. Look, I'm in the California Spangle camp here. I reckon 1,400 metres right in his sweet spot. I reckon he's a top-class 1,200 metre horse in front, but can't wait for the race. I'd love to see three of them at the top of the straight, and let's see what they got.
I think that's what we'll get. The interesting tactics up front. Zac will be leading, the other two stalking, and hopefully we'll get them head-to-head in the last furlong or so there. Michael, we'll leave Hong Kong for a moment and head to Europe via Saudi Arabia, because you caught up with a jockey there, and we've had a report, excellent article on the Asian Racing Report as well with Dave Morgan, about a Kazakh jockey who's champion jockey in Germany and is now going to be riding for one of the, well, not Europe's, even one of the biggest stables in the world in the shape of André Fabre.
Yeah, Bauyrzhan Murzabayev from Kazakhstan. And yeah, great piece from David Morgan during the week. Go and check it out if you haven't read it already, and sort of charting his rise from literally child jockey in Kazakhstan, 7 years old, riding thoroughbreds in 20-kilometre races across the steppe, and the deserts there in Kazakhstan. Great horse people. And look, he's a great young jockey and a really measured, level-headed personality too, which it sort of speaks to his success in Japan. He won the Hopeful Stakes there. He's become, his reputation has really built, and just from meeting him and being around him, there's no airs and graces about him. There's no self-promotion. Just a really solid horseman who's getting the results. And look, something I'd like to say from that is, when I was speaking to him, we asked if the Hong Kong Jockey Club had been in touch with him over the years. And I really think that they've missed an opportunity to recruit Bauyrzhan. He said that they haven't even contacted him. Just wonder whether the Jockey Club licensing recruitment is a little bit too narrow these days.
Well, if he wasn't on the radar before, I'm sure he is now. Maybe you can get him out for a winter stint, something on those lines. Who knows what the future might hold.
They'll certainly be seeing him on an Andre Fabre visitor in December.
There you go. And as far as the rest of the Asian Racing Report is concerned, this week going forward, and launch of the new podcast series as well. Really good chat with Christophe Lemaire, and some interesting insights there you had.
Yeah, it was great to be able to launch the Asian Racing Report podcast and look out for some new episodes coming soon. But Christophe Lemaire, it's one that I've wanted to do for a long time, and just talking about how it works from a jockey's perspective. Look, he's a real trailblazer, Christophe. In terms of, he's one of only two foreign jockeys to ever be licensed full-time. He and the Italian jockey Mirko Demuro, who was licensed at the same time. And we went right into the process that it takes to become a full-time jockey in Japan. His plans for the future. And look, and his style as a jockey and what inspires him. Like what I'd say about Christophe Lemaire is too often, I think, when we talk about the world's best jockeys, we throw around Ryan Moore, Zac Purton when he was in his prime. And sometimes maybe Lemaire, who's a super stylish jockey who's broken a host of records in Japan. His name probably gets left out, and I think he provided a great insight into what makes him tick and what Japanese racing is all about on the podcast.
All right, you'll find that wherever you get your podcasts. Michael, enjoy the weekend. It should be a brilliant one. We'll catch up with you next week.
Thanks, Andrew.
All right, so like, subscribe, and keep tuning in for more from your Asian Racing Review.